Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. It's Toxic Moonchild, and today we are going to be trying something. So I hope you guys enjoy this. I want to start a what's it called? Series, I guess it will be on my channel, called spookyscarygametime. I can't even speak, y'all. But basically, it's gonna be where I tell scary stories of some kind while playing a game that's just kind of like, doesn't take a lot of attention, that kind of stuff. Just something simple, little game playing in the background while I tell the scary story. It's either going to be one long story or it's going to be multiple small stories. It can be true stories like sent in by people. It can be creepypastas. It can be anything. Okay, so any kind of scary story. And we're going to be trying out a new thing. Hopefully you guys enjoy it because I really enjoy this. Meet Toxic, my new avatar. She is going to be the new face of our channel. So I hope you guys enjoy her, and I hope you guys enjoy the scary story. So let's go ahead and get into it. Now, the first round of this, if you want to call it a round, whatever, it's going to be a compilation of kind of like smaller short stories. So that way, we can just kind of take it easy going into it. I don't know if there are 10 of them that I have. I don't know if I'm going to do all 10 just to start, but I figured this was a good way to start, okay? And the game that we're going to be playing while reading these is called Rebuild 2. Basically, it's a zombie survival game. I mean, you don't really see much of the people. It's just kind of like a top-down, like city rebuilder kind of thing. I don't know. It's a fun little game. I love playing it on my own time when I'm at home. Just kind of like, if I want to play something while watching TV, this is something that I'll play. So let's get into the first story. Okay, this one's called The Crematorium, and I'm gonna just disclaimer now, just in case if you guys hear stuff in the background, if my cat's going crazy, I apologize, because it's like they decide that when I'm recording is the best time to just be like, oh, let's spaz out. Yeah, so just a little just a little disclaimer beforehand. So yeah, anyway, let's get to the story. Alright, this one's called The Crematorium. I used to work as a secretary at a funeral home. I got fairly used to hanging out during long viewings and turning the lamps off on their side of the open caskets before going home late at night. The embalming was done at a different location, but the crematory was located in the back room. The funeral directors would slide the bodies onto a board on a gurney and use rollers to slide the corpse into the chamber. A gush of fire in the depths and the door would slam shut. One afternoon, my co-worker and I were working in the front office while the crematorium was on. We were alone there, except for the unfortunate guy in the oven. It usually took about 3 or 4 hours for the fire to do its job. Suddenly, we heard a loud bang from the crematorium. We jumped. Then again, a bang! It was loud. We hurried back to the crematorium. It was dark. The oven was roaring. I looked into the window. The body had flipped completely around, and the glowing skull was facing me. grinning. An eerie sight in the gloom, the skeleton and the smiling, glowing skull. We did not go gently to that good night, that one. Whew, man. Now, excuse me. Now these stories that I collected, I believe were submitted by real people. So if so, no thanks. I'd really rather not. Alright, so let's move on to our next story. Alternate reality. This happened just a few weeks ago, one weekend afternoon. I walked out to my car and my neighbor approaches me, asking me if we're all okay, my family and I. When I asked what he was talking about, he began to describe the scenario that just played out. A car hit a small pile of gravel on the side of the road in front of our house. A man got out, looked at his car, and then began yelling toward our house. He then proceeded to pound on our front door, still yelling about his car and the gravel and work. He walked around to the side of our house and began throwing rocks at our house. By then, multiple neighbors had come outside because of all this commotion. My neighbor told me that he witnessed the guy hit our house with a rock. He described as creating a sound like a gunshot. At that point, my neighbor and his biker buddies chased the guy off. I told him I had no idea what he was talking about, as I really didn't. As we'd been in our living room getting ready to watch a baseball game on TV the entire time. Like right in front of the windows that face the street and the front door. We hadn't seen or heard anything like what he had just described. Our house is small, and things like door knocks are always easy to hear. I just went back in our house and told my wife that what our neighbor had just said. She was just as bewildered as me, so we opened the security camera app to see if it caught anything. Lo and behold, we see a car pull up, stop suddenly, in front of our house. A tall guy in black shabby clothes gets out, starts gesturing towards our house as soon as he walks up to it. During this, we see our daughter leave the house and begin walking down the street to the communal mailboxes. We ask our daughter if she noticed this guy, and she claimed to have not seen or heard anything when she went out to check the mail. But we can see her walking right past this guy and his car. Confused even more, I walked out to the side of the house where there were indeed 2 rock-sized holes in our siding. So this entire series of events unfolded, and it's likely the guy was totally invisible to us, like we were in a separate reality. My wife swears something was protecting us from whoever this guy was and what he was trying to do to us. Wow. I couldn't imagine. Like, you have a security camera. Catch all of this that your neighbor just told you about. On top of that, your child leaves the house, walking right past this maniac, and nothing. Just nothing. Like, doesn't see them, doesn't hear them, not a thing. So yeah, that's a little scary if you think about it. All right, let's move on to our next story. This one's called Mary Patrick. My friends Katie and Peggy grew up in a large, tightly knit Irish Catholic family. They lived with their widowed mother in a sprawling old 19th century farmhouse in Connecticut. Mrs. O'Brien was the clan's no-nonsense matriarch, with an immediate family equally as large as the one she created around Katie, Peggy, and their siblings. Mary Patrick was Mrs. O'Brien's aunt, her mother's older sister, Katie and Peggy's great aunt. A former nun, Aunt Mary Patrick had never married. She lived alone in a small apartment in West Hartford, about half an hour away on a meager pension from a librarian job from which she had retired ages earlier. Mary Patrick's small income was supplemented by the family, in a sense. The family had inherited their Aunt Mary Patrick as a promise made to some long-lost relatives. A promise that by common unspoken consent simply must be kept. As far back as anyone could remember, Aunt Mary Patrick had not worked, visited family, or even left her apartment. Aunt Mary Patrick periodically put Mrs. O'Brien and her daughters to minor errands, a trip to the post office, a sudden realization that the milk carton was empty, which any objective observer could see were actually the product of deep loneliness. A bit of a trial was how Miss O'Brien described her Aunt Mary Patrick. According to Peggy, of course they loved her, but Mary Patrick was simply not a happy woman. When the family visited, Mary Patrick invariably began with how it had been a month of Sundays since the family last visited, and how nobody above ground cared for her anymore. Whenever they called her on the telephone, Mary Patrick would always act astonished and pretend she could not recognize the caller because it's been a dog's age since their last call, even if they had spoken earlier that day. A typical telephone call with Aunt Mary Patrick would begin with minor complaints as she ran through a litany of aches, pains, and 1,000 other natural shocks her flesh was heir to. And the call would continue on to errands that had been promised to her and neglected, and then on to errands that were presently needed. Should she discern insufficient interest on the other end of the telephone line, Mary Patrick might say something like, "Oh, I'm sorry, is an old lady boring you?" If she was in a really bad mood, Mary Patrick would say, "For all anyone cares, I might as well be dead." One late winter afternoon, Peggy was practicing piano in the next room over from the kitchen. Miss O'Brien was in the kitchen preparing the family dinner. Peggy heard the kitchen telephone ring, took in parts of the ensuing conversation. She heard the tiny note of registration in her mother's voice when she answered, "Oh, hello, Aunt Mary Patrick. Yes, this weekend? Of course, we will do our best." And then, "It's really no trouble at all." And then finally, "Please don't say that, Aunt Mary Patrick. Nobody would be better off without you. We would all miss you greatly." Peggy told us she went into the kitchen as the conversation came to a close. "Yes, we will all see you soon, Aunt Mary Patrick. Yes, very soon." Miss O'Brien replaced the phone in its cradle and turned to Peg. Your Aunt Mary Patrick seemed more frail than usual. Maybe it was a bad connection. Her voice was very faint. As we talked, it faded in and out, as if it was moving away from the phone. Peggy said Katie then came into the kitchen. She said that she and Katie lent her mother a hand cutting up vegetables, and then went on for maybe 20 minutes. They talked about soap operas, they talked about the weather, and then the telephone rang again. Again, Mrs. O'Brien answered it. Her mother immediately shushed her and her sister and listened intently to the caller on the other end of the line. All Peggy and Katie's concern was a muffled, masculine-sounding voice. As the caller spoke, Mrs. O'Brien grew pale. She retrieved pen and paper from a drawer and took some notes. When she hung up, she looked out into the middle distance and said without expression, "Girls, I suddenly have a terrible headache," and she abruptly left the kitchen. Peggy said Katie pursued their mother out of the kitchen. A few minutes later, Katie returned and told Peggy that it was the state police on the telephone. Katie told her the reason for their mother's discomfort was their old Aunt Mary Patrick had just died. They called us because we were her emergency contacts. Apparently, a neighbor found Mary Patrick in her bed in her apartment. Poor thing. Police told Mom she'd been dead for at least 3 days. Whew. That one gave me chills, y'all. Like, seriously, that one gave me chills. Whew. Okay, let's move on to our next one. The Void. My parents were on one of their weekend vacations and left their dog with me, who's terrified of car rides. This is the only circumstance under which I go outside at night to let the dog pee. There are a few street lamps on my road, but between those, it's pitch dark. So we were walking down the road for pee time and entering one of these dark patches when he stops and starts growling. I saw something standing in the middle of the road, darker than the pitch's blackness. I got out my flashlight and saw something. I got as close as wrangling an aggressive dog would allow and walked all around the thing that cast no shadow. It didn't move, and it didn't move with the wind, and I could neither see through nor into it because it absorbed light like a black hole. It was just a knee-high void of nothingness, roughly moundish in shape. By the time the dog acted like he wanted to murder the thing, I was like, "We ain't touching that," and dragged him back to my property, making the decision that he would be peeing in the backyard for the rest of the night. That was for sure. We went back inside and started playing video games while he wandered off to sleep somewhere. I presumed at first. I eventually realized there was a grumbling noise coming from the kitchen, so I went in there, turning on the light, and found him at the top of the stairs leading to the basement, staring down into the darkness. I stood next to him, wondered what his problem was, and that's when I noticed, in between the ever louder growls, that I could hear something moving slowly, softly in the basement. A little shuffle here, something on the shelf rustling there. At the base of the stairs is a bathroom with a door that opens towards the stairs, so I keep it firmly closed at all times. And I heard it gently creak open. Whoever it was only 7 steps away from us, but I couldn't see anyone, and I realized I couldn't see the door either. Just pitches. And I was like, "Bucket, Lee, the stairs have a door that locks." So I pulled the extremely tense dog away and locked the door. Then carried the still growling dog into the living room and put on a loud movie. And we both eventually relaxed and got some sleep. The next day, nothing was amiss in the basement. The bathroom door was still firmly closed. And on the road, there was nothing to suggest a void had ever been there. It was like a hole in space had stopped by to say, hello. Alright. That one was kind of creepy, y'all. I mean, like, what would you do in that situation? Seriously, like, you're watching a family member's animal, dog, or say you have your own and you're going out for a walk, and then all of a sudden you just encounter this random black mass that you can't see into, you can't see through it, and then all of a sudden it shows up in your house, of all places. Yeah. So, I would not be too happy with that one. Alright, let me see here. We're going to go ahead and do one more story, and that will conclude our very first Scary Spooky Game Time. Alright, this one is called Too Much for the Catholics. I've always experienced ghostly phenomena, and thankfully, it's become a lot less terrifying as I've gotten older. As a kid, I more than once wet the bed instead of dealing with whatever was in the hallway. It usually situations where I spot something out of the corner of my eye, need to help someone pass on to the next side, or am asked to give a loved one messages. It's taken a long time, but I consider this gift as a blessing. If there is something I am not interested in dealing with, however, is non-human entities. About 10 years ago, I moved into an apartment with a Sicilian brother and sister duo. I needed a place after escaping a roommate with BPD and a cocaine addiction. So I didn't think about the Italians sharing 2 twin beds in the same room. It was built 20 years before, was beautifully furnished, and had an enormous living room that was strangely never went in. The first night in my new bed, something fell off very suddenly. Around 3 a.m., unseen hands pushed themselves up my legs over the blankets. Parts of the room were freezing. I felt like I was being watched by something that I hated. Headed into the third night of sleeplessness, the ragazzo and I were sitting down to dinner. His eyes were wide when he asked if I'd experienced sudden shifts in temperatures too. You mean the cold air next to us right now? See, my sister and I are sharing a room because we don't want to stay here. We are Catholics, but praying doesn't help. The next day, I went to church and asked a priest to bless me. When asking him for advice, he simply told me to move out. Undaunted and desperate for a non-awful living situation, I felt the energy enter my room and brought out various Bible verses. The tension in the room rose and pulsated to a point that my string lights, lamp, and phone died simultaneously. My friend let me crash on her sofa for a few days. After hurriedly finding a new place, I had to go back and pack my things. Bedroom energy seemed slightly less hostile, but walking into the kitchen, my blood went cold. All of the cupboard doors were wide open. It was a demand to leave, not a request. Most of the time, I can determine who I'm dealing with. This was pure darkness. I threw my keys on the kitchen table and never asked for my deposit back. Alright, y'all, so that is going to wrap up our first ever spooky, scary game time. If you guys enjoyed this, please make sure that you hit that subscribe button, that like button, and notification bells. Now, don't get me wrong, the normal gameplays are still going to be on the channel, It's still going to be available, and I'm still going to do our normal games. This just seemed like something fun because I enjoy this. I enjoy horror. I enjoy scary, spooky, creepy things. And I figured maybe this would be another option for people who just like the scary, creepy kind of stuff, but don't necessarily like horror games to be like jump scared and things like that, or they don't really care for much of the other content, like, you know, the normal games, things like that. So basically just trying to give a little bit of something for everybody, so that way you guys can all enjoy your time here with us and enjoy being with us. So please don't forget to make sure you hit that like button, hit that notification bell. Please subscribe. I would appreciate it very, very much. And it helps the channel, it helps get this content out to other people like yourselves who absolutely would enjoy this content. If you're new here, welcome. I hope you enjoy your stay with us. If you're returning, thank you so much for all the love and support. I really appreciate it. And I will see you guys in the next one. Cheers.